I was talking to one of our prominent jumps coaches. He's specialising in high jump, but he's very good at other areas, Alex Stewart. And I said, how's the year been for you? He said, it's been kind of messed up, but there's been silver linings. And he said, one of the things that we've had problems with is getting in the gym with the appropriate equipment. And he said, we've been using lifting in our gym, which is our garage, and we've been had to use rubbish bins as what do you call it, supports for the bar and the plates. That's what it's come to, because the institutes of sport shut down everything, because they don't want to have any legal wranglings with people who catch anything. It's understandable, but all the gyms were closed for a while there.
Well, what are the numbers like there, Mike, in terms of infections? And it's relatively low, right?
It's real low. I mean, there's nowhere at the moment is shut down. Some states have been incredibly cautious. In fact, all the states have been incredibly cautious. Victoria was a complete lockdown, wouldn't let anybody in or out. New South Wales wouldn't let any Victorians across the southern border. Anybody that goes anywhere still across or flies into Australia has to do a 2-week quarantine in isolation under police guard. And every now and then someone slips through the network and all hell breaks loose. There's panic stations everywhere. So as far as I'm concerned, that's a good thing. Might be an overreaction, but you know how fast these things can spread. America is absolute proof of that.
Was Victoria the one who closed the gates where it was like made news, Mike? Or was that a different province?
Victoria closed the gates. West Australia has only just opened in the last day or two. Victoria has only opened in the last day or two. Tasmania, which is a little island, it's not little, it's pretty big, but Tasmania wouldn't let anybody in or out for a really long time, but they've never had a positive. And so you'd say, okay, all right, we'll look after our own. You look after your own, we'll all get along fine. We'll live to talk about it another day. But it's opened its gates again. One of my athletes is a Tasmanian lady architect, Amy Petter, and she came up here for 1 week and then had to spend 2 weeks in quarantine when she went home to Hobart. That's messed up. But, that's the rules. So they take it very seriously down here. Very, very seriously. And stuff like social spacing, every single cafe, anywhere you go, any store that you go into, record store, anything like that, you have to sign in, or you use one of those, I don't know what they call them, QV codes or something like that, where that you put your phone up to it, and then it says, just put your name and your phone number and your email here. And it's for tracing purposes. They're not interested in your personal details. They're not going to send you flyers, come to the Christmas sales or something like that.
So when you go to the massage parlor, Mike, do you still do that? You still scan?
Absolutely. Otherwise, they wouldn't let you in. But there's the rub. Sorry about that.
Getting that joke.
Very.
Oh, we wouldn't want to infringe on your personal freedoms, Mike.
Absolutely not.
Get a phone and body scan.
There you go. That's what you do. So what do you reckon they're going to do when the Olympics comes along? Do you reckon they'll just open the gates and let everyone pour into Tokyo?
Oh no. Okay, so let's start off with that one, Mike. We got a small, tight group here, which is good, and we can get into a lot of different subjects. But let's talk about the Olympics. It's been kind of off the radar. And is it going to happen? What's the planned date for Tokyo? 2021.
It's the same as last year, off by 1 day. So late July, August.
Yep. I think it'll go ahead. I didn't have any confidence until all these vaccines started to appear. And now I think if it's handled well and if it's kept under strict control, it could happen and it could be a big success. But I would say that anyone who refuses to have a vaccine should really probably be banned from even going to Japan, much less competing in the Olympics. That'll upset a lot of people. From my point of view, I don't care. I think people have the right not to take the vaccine, but you don't have the right to infect anybody else. So from my point of view, the lesser of two evils, if you like, would be to have some kind of medical document saying that you are up to speed, that you're inoculated as best as we understand it, and just go for it now. And best luck, bring home the gold.
Well, you could always have your anti-vaxxer games as an offshoot where they put them on an island somewhere, and kind of like UFC.
Not Long Island.
I love Long Island.
But I'm just wondering if the question I had was, will athletes get some degree of priority? So like, say you have, and Rob, you can jump into this, NBA, NHL, sports in general, do they get a little bit more priority to get the vaccine and get them going so that we have entertainment? Is that going to be the rationale?
From what I'm hearing right now, it's just going to be essential workers and then, the elderly and on down. But it wouldn't surprise me if some economic venues cut the line, so to speak. But I don't know. That's all I've heard right now is essential workers, mostly starting with the frontline emergency rooms, hospitals, etc., and then the elderly, and then on down. What I'm hoping for is you have Moderna and you have Pfizer, right? And then you have 6 companies that have been working on this. This is only 2. I forget who the third one is. That's going to, Johnson & Johnson is going to soon propose FDA approval. So if you can get 6 companies to produce vaccines that are effective 94, 95% or better, then the volume of vaccine available, may be the answer to that question, right? Then everybody gets it. Right now you have 2 approved with a third on deck, and I'm not sure how far away the other 3 are, and then others to follow. So I don't know.
And pretty much you get what you get. You don't get to choose like, oh, I feel like it's a Moderna day.
I don't think so. I mean, okay. I think, was it Pfizer and Moderna are 2 injections, and I think Johnson & Johnson's only 1. So I assume most people, if they're all effective, would prefer just to have the 1 injection, but the volume of vaccine's not going to be there. And then, I've heard that the United States government has proposed that they'll give $1,500 to people if they get an injection, which I don't know how you can afford that with over 300 million people in the United States.
So an injection incentive?
Injection incentive, but I don't know how reliable that report is. I don't know. I could tell you for me, myself, I know some infectious disease physicians, and my daughter's a physician's assistant at a hospital. She has relationships with infectious disease physicians. And if those physicians take the vaccine, I'm more than happy to take it as well, because they're the experts, right? So if they take it, I'll take it. If they're hesitant to take it, I got to think about it.
Can we have a separate Zoom session where you inform us what happened there?
Yeah. But no, I think that the way things are being conveyed, it's safe, and the more people that can get resistance, the better off we're going to be with regards to protection as well as spreading.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Definitely. And I think there's this the reason why I wanted to jump on, I think there's this anticipation that like, okay, the end is in sight, the vaccine's coming, But now for a lot of people, we're at the highest numbers we've ever had in terms of infections, deaths, hospitalizations. And so how do we make sure that, people don't get ahead of themselves and like, oh, I'll get the vaccine. Well, we need the vaccine, before you can go out and party and do whatever you want to do. Ryan, what's going on in your part of the country? And, are people taking this seriously and going, okay, we just got to make this push for a couple more months or however long, get the vaccinations done, and then, talk about normalcy?
Well, I think the big thing is for people, they had a real wake up call when the rest of the world saw cases start shooting up again. And, America has kind of this reputation of all these people not wearing masks. And I would say in every major area I've been in, most of the people are wearing masks when they're in public. They're not, going against that, like people who are conservatives are wearing masks, like last night I was at a friend's house and, I was wearing a mask at their house, I wore it the whole time, other than when I was consuming some delicious whiskey, which I paid for dearly this morning when I woke up. But anyway.
Pedialyte.
Yeah, guess what? That's what that is called. Sponsored by Pedialyte. But anyway, the big thing that we're concerned about is as a public educator is if we're considered essential, when are we going to be able to get it? And since a lot of my happiness is not only driven by teaching kids face to face, but also being able to have a sports season, because I don't know what my program would look like if I lose 2 years in a row. I know some people, everybody's kind of in the same spot, but I don't know what that's going to be like. I don't know how that would work. I mean, it would almost be like trying to start all over again. And, that's my selfish end. The bigger end, which is not as selfish, is I'm concerned about kids who have been out of physical face-to-face school for what could be over a calendar year, and the effects that that's going to have on all of education for 15 years. Because you got to think, like, all that learning that was supposed to be done for that year and a half. As an educator, I get to see these kids at the end as a high school person, before obviously they go on to college. But, and I worry, like, what developmental problems are we going to have academically? Also achievement gaps with poverty-stricken communities. And most of the kids that we serve that are poverty-stricken chose to stay virtual and instead of coming in and being face-to-face. And part of that's because they are more predisposed for whatever reason to suffer worse from this virus. They also live in multi-generational homes. So a lot of times there's been like these very wannabe caring teachers who are like, these kids need to be in school and this is ridiculous and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, they do. But you have to understand, like, if they bring that virus home, they're not just worried about themselves, but they're worried about grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, whoever else is living in that household. And so health is going to be, the most important thing over anything else. But I worry about mental health. And then, Derek, we didn't start in-person school in St. Louis until like last month, and we did it for 2 weeks, and then we got shut down. And then the mechanism of what it looks like when we come back, that I didn't agree with kind of how our school district did it, where we were teaching the kids on Zoom and in person the same lessons. And then we'd see different kids that next day that were on the Zoom, they would be in person, and the kids that we were in person the day before would be on Zoom. And it was awful, because you're already got to wear a mask and you have to have your ear plugged in with a microphone to teach the kids in the classroom. And a lot of my colleagues just sat in front of the computer and taught to the computer while the kids were sitting in their room, also on their Chromebook. It's like, that is not what public education is about, and just in education in general. Now, thank goodness they're still letting our little guys go, and thank goodness, like, the elementary school kids seem to not be spreading it, and our cases are very, very, very low. But we also ran into a employment problem where a lot of teachers were either quarantining because they really genuinely had an interaction with somebody, or they were choosing kind of as a protest to stay home and not go in because they didn't really genuinely want to get sick. So, and then to add to that, Derek, I've actually lost 3 family members to COVID in a month. My grandmother, my grand aunt, her sister, and one of my cousins, but really he's old enough to be my uncle. And the grand aunt was 109. My grandmother was 103. So they were the oldest pair of siblings in the world. They were at that point on the Guinness watch list. And of course, that's unfortunately passed on. And they were pretty high energy people, even at their elderly extreme ages. And so for a person like me living in Missouri, which is, you know, Trumper land, it's a big wake up call when you start to see some of your relatives, no matter how old they are, pass away. And because these cases have gone up, more people are getting affected by this. They know that this thing is real. They know that it can kill elderly people, and especially people with diabetes and high blood pressure. So I think everyone, I know I'm going on here, but I think everyone has really started to realize this isn't going to go away. And so you have to start shaping up your act. And by God, you're going to really need to take that vaccine to get us past this thing.
Yeah, well, we offer our condolences, Ryan, there. That's, I mean, the positive thing is that you're going to be available for at least 55 more years for Zoom sessions based on your genetics.
Hey, Ryan, can I ask you a question? If
Rob.
we get this under control at that point in time, if you feel education has really regressed, will there be elimination of summer vacation for catch up?
I don't think there's been a discussion for that here. You know, I think what will change is that there are some people that are flourishing in this Zoom non-face-to-face environment, especially people that have social emotional anxiety in public spaces and things like that. Yeah, so I think that will be a game changer. Now, I'm a pro-human. And I know that's a weird statement, but as we're moving forward, we're doing more and more things where we're not interacting, we're not pressing the flesh, we're not hugging, we're not dealing with humans, artificial intelligence, you know, robots coming down the line that already are doing most of manufacturing. I'm a little concerned about the lack of connectivity from human to human. And I feel like this is going to accelerate the rationale for people who I consider pretty dangerous to go away from a human face-to-face model, which I truly think is the best way to go.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I wanted to bring up was like, how are things going to change moving forward, even if we have vaccines on the horizon and there's a light at the end of the tunnel? I mean, we'll talk to Rob a bit here. Rob, as a business owner, and even Eric, you can jump in too, physical therapy. How are things changing for you? Like, let's assume that people get vaccinated in the spring, and I mean, is there still going to be mask protocols and distancing, and you're not going to have these crush capacity, happening in your clinic?
Yeah, well, the unknown is right now to get through the next 3 months, which they say are going to be horrific, right? And so, you know, my thing is the safety of my family, my staff, and my patients. So, you know, what do we need to do? So we need to take all necessary precautions, and then, you know, through a process of the rollout of the vaccine and hopefully immunity, or however it goes, you're going to wind up with a situation where there are people that opt with their option, right? They're going to say, I don't care if you tell me it's safe or not. I'm going to wear gloves and a mask and continue social distance, and that's fine. There are going to still be possible requirements, regardless of the availability of the vaccine. We still require you as a mandate to wear masks, gloves, and social distance, whatever. I think, you know, I don't think it's an all or none. I think we're going to find out, we're going to best adapt to the necessity of safety to ourselves and our patients, et cetera, you know, through a progression of time, you know.
Will businesses require people be vaccinated to access their business? Do you think that's going to happen? Proof of vaccination?
I don't know. I don't know if legally you can make somebody do that, right? Because we have people, and I could be wrong, you know, in the time of a pandemic and a crisis, But there are people that still refuse to have their children vaccinated prior to this pandemic. There are people that refuse to take flu shot. I mean, listen, the flu shot's available. It's not obviously as severe as COVID-19, but I think 50% of all people don't take the flu shot, prior to this pandemic. So legally, can we make people? And that's what I said before. Is that $1,500 incentivization real? I don't know. It's something I heard about. I haven't looked into it, but I agree with what Mike said before. I mean, it may come down that we may have a business policy, which may be legal, or we may get challenged on it, that our people have to take the vaccine, because I do agree that if you want to put harm's way into yourself, right? If I want to be a smoker, that's my decision, but I can't make other people smoke, and I shouldn't put other people at risk. I agree with what Mike said before.
But and they can't smoke on your premises, right? Like
right,
they could smoke.
exactly.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I get the hesitancy to take a vaccine, but people, restaurants stop people from smoking in restaurants, right? That's a law. So how far can we go with the law? I don't know. Like I said before, I told you, my situation with regards to where I'm going to be comfortable taking the vaccine. And I think times have changed. It's not been early 1900s with the Spanish flu. We have advances in medicine. We have computers. We have a lot of things helping us make these advances. And the trials go through in an accelerated yet safe manner, then we have to have some type of confidence. The alternative is pretty scary. So I don't know.
How about you, Eric? Like, as a business owner, do you need people to have vaccinations to enter your premises?
We've never asked before for anything, and so I don't anticipate this is, again, a bit of a guess, but I don't anticipate we will in the future. But you never know. I think it's going to be so different place to place, and I think our experience here in Vancouver will be inherently different than anywhere else in Canada, and different than anywhere else. Oh, it's really loud. Is that better?
Breaking up.
Oh, sorry. I'm not yelling, I swear. I can like do this. Is that better there?
A little better. Yep.
Yeah, okay, sorry. It's just, this mustache makes me talk with it. I gotta get the voice past it, right? I think my anticipation of our experience here is that the vast majority of people will land on the side of the equation where they want to get this thing done with and move on, that there will be an ongoing problem, but it won't be that big of a problem as it may be other places, right? That's my anticipation here. And then I think masks will continue for some time. Like, I was talking last night with a colleague about it, like 2020 was crazy. I think 2021 is going to be even crazier, like in terms of the rollout of this vaccine, right? I'm not sure what you guys talked about beforehand here, but can imagine a lot of people wanting it very quickly as soon as it's available, and the ability to get it to people is going to be a big stressor. And so I think from a time perspective, I'm personally preparing for this, our current protocols to last well into next year, if not the whole year.
Yeah, like, is there even, and anybody can jump in here, like if you're a school teacher or you're a coach or you're a business owner, is there value in at least understanding who has had the vaccine and who hasn't, so you can take precautions either way? Like, Rob, like, what do you think about that? Like, as long as you know who is vaccinated and who isn't, you can still serve them, but maybe in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think you're going to serve the patients the way you're going to serve the patients. I mean, we're serving them now and they don't have a vaccine, right? So I think it really comes down to your staff. And so, look, a lot of people who practice medicine have relationships in medicine, and so they'll speak to their cohorts of their peers. And I think most medical professionals will take the vaccine, as far as I'm concerned. The general public, if proven safe, they should take it too, but they may not. But if you're vaccinated, and so hopefully armor coated against this thing, I think that'll that'll ease some tensions. But I do agree, what was said. I think that masking and social distancing is probably going to carry on through most of 21, if not through the entire year. I don't think we're going to have normalcy, whatever normalcy is, until 22. I don't. As things were before. That doesn't mean that sports aren't going to be going on or all those other things, and schools aren't going to go back to classroom settings in September. I just think, as we know what normalcy is, I think we're still a year away. I do.
Yeah, Ryan, you had a comment there, and one of the things that before Ryan jumps in, I mentioned to my wife, I'm like, hey, I really haven't had a sore throat or sniffles or anything for the last 8 or 9 months, which is kind of cool. So am I gonna keep wearing a mask for the rest of my life or stay away from people? And Ryan, when we go back to sports, how does that influence how you arrange practice or, send people to a locker room or have meetings? Is that going to change?
Well, I think, when Mike Tyson, who just had a fight recently, his old quote, you have a plan until you get punched in the face. But then that kind of demonizes this idea of having a plan. And I can tell you that not having a plan is not the way to go, because I've seen it. And so one of the things I tend to do is I don't sit back and, let things just kind of come to me. So one of the things I've been actively trying to do is discuss with our athletic directors, because we have one that's over 4 high schools. We have the biggest geographical footprint in our state. And I'm like, hey, you're going to be talking to these state officials. This is how we need to explain how our sport's going to get done, where you have different camps. So you have preset camps where the athletes are supposed to be when they're not competing. You have those in the parking lot so you can spread everybody out. You don't have a lot of parents showing up. You do the every other lane type thing on the track. I mean, track and field is a very socially distant sport in the first place. When it comes to practice, we're probably not going to do what I usually do, which is my big typical, group huddle after our general warm-up. Our general warm-up is done by everybody in my program, from a distance kid to a thrower. We're probably going to split those kids up. And one of the other things I do is I normally like to keep some of my less talented kids around through the championship phases of the season and try to get as many competitions I can get in. But the thing is, if a kid pops positive and they have to shut down my entire team, and the little peek behind the curtain, I've got 4 girls who are extraordinarily fast if I can keep them healthy this year. And we have a chance genuinely to break the state record in the 4x2. I want to do that. I want that opportunity for those girls, our school, our program. And, I want that check in the box for me too. And so it's like how, keeping those kids that normally aren't as talented around, because I want them to love the sport and maybe have a big peak or a PR at the end. I may have to tell them, hey, 3 weeks out, you're going to get a month and a half of track and field, but everybody else that's kind of at the standard will get to stick around for 2.5 to 3 months of the season, whatever it may be. And that's something. When the kids, we're not going to have a lot of mixed or multi-event athletes, they're going to be stuck with their group. So if that group has a positive test, then they're the only people shut down and the rest of my track team can carry on. So those are things like I'm trying to explain to my athletic director, here are the things I'd like to do so that we can get this sport done and that you can recommend to the state associations. So that way we can keep ourselves from getting popped with a positive test. Now in Missouri, the girls are playing basketball right now and they're wearing masks in basketball. Boys and girls are all wearing masks. So I think people are kind of getting the idea that, hey, we can get this done. Transmittability between the athletes is pretty low. The big problem is when the kids are away from us and they're going and partying, and you have some kid, and this happened at our school, he showed up to a Halloween party not wearing a mask. It's Halloween. Okay, wear a mask. All right. And he couldn't smell and he couldn't taste, and he still went to the party. So these are things like kids have to figure this stuff out too. And I think the more that this goes on, I think they're getting better at being responsible as well, realizing that like, hey, I don't want my season getting shut down. But I think the plan up front, communicating that with the administrators so they can take it higher up, specifically to the sport, dividing up the groups, because track and field is a socially distant sport. I think it can get done. I know it's harder for some other sports that are a little bit more touchy.
Yeah, and if you're doing all the due diligence and taking care of your team and all that, and then you got to go do a meet against the Baltimore Ravens, like how do you figure that out in terms of like, are we going to do that meet? Because I know they're not taking the same precautions, and I don't want to risk getting my athletes interacting with other athletes.
And I would say to that, that's kind of one of the things too, is like, there should be different recommendations. It's like, if we're 6 feet away and we're running a 200-meter dash and I'm only near that person unmasked for 23 seconds, or whatever the time would be for a really elite girl, like why is it that then my whole team has to be shut down from that? Seems to me to be pretty silly. And that's where that 15 minutes of direct interaction protocol is really important when it comes to track and field, where you cannot avoid that in a soccer game. It's like, I played one-on-one essentially with this guy at his position for 40 plus minutes each half. Like, that's a different scenario than track. And that's where everybody's got to remember that it's not a one-stop shop in terms of how we respond to quarantining, which you guys know they pushed it down to 10 days and then 7 days if you have a negative test. I'm a little hesitant of the negative test, because I feel like those tests have proven to be really goofy. Like, there was a guy on the Raiders who popped positive one time and he gets tested twice a day, and he never tested positive before or after. It's like, what's going on with the test that you go over to this medical facility and all of a sudden it pops you positive? Like, that's where I get concerned, because we need to know who really is sick and who isn't.
Yeah, it's going to be rocky heading forward. Mike Hurst, do you keep all your athletes domestic, keep them all in your, and have competitions, or are you going to allow them at some point to travel to other states or out of the country? Are you just going to be very careful with that?
Oh, I keep them locked in their own bedrooms. I never let them out. No, we're all traveling. The whole squad's traveling down to Tasmania on Boxing Day, 26th December, to do 3 meets in a 5-day period in 3 different towns. And we're really looking forward to it. There's a little bit of prize money there. Most of the meets are kind of handicap meets. One of the meets in Burnie is like 120 years old, maybe 130. I'm not sure, because I've never been there. So it's a little bit of an adventure. And it's been an inducement for one of my athletes, Beck Bennett, who's had some horrific trauma 7 months ago, to resume training and try to get over her grief and her night horrors, to come back and join the group. And we'll have this little road trip down to Tasmania, and it'll be awesome. And so for me, that side of it is the silver lining. And even the Olympics being postponed from this year is in itself a silver lining. In her case, I believe she would have been definitely on the team. Now she's got to wait another year, and she may not make the team, but we'll see how that goes. And for another one of my guys who, she was the anchor for our team in Doha at the World Champs last year. And another guy in my squad, Ian Halpin, was the anchor for the men's 4x4, also in Doha. And he's developed some niggles here and there. And he wouldn't have made the Olympic team, I don't think, because of the niggles. But now he's nearly through them. We've changed the whole protocol, the whole training regime. And, so in one way or another, the Olympics being postponed, for example, was a silver lining for us. I know I'm a little off track there, but I think it's an important issue. So.
Yeah, I would think that switching or shifting of the games itself is going to benefit some and disbenefit others based on just the timing, especially in something like gymnastics or but things can change so quickly.
Swings and roundabouts. So yeah, as you say, it's some there'll be winners and there'll be losers out of that situation. And most athletes that I know that have the ability and have the aspiration to be an Olympian, and that may be the prime motivation for them staying in the sport and sacrificing, career and funding and all the rest of it, because as all of you know, if you're going to go to the Olympics, you really are on a quest of your own, and it's a personal decision. And don't complain if you don't get support, because everyone else out there is working hard to make a dollar, and we're not in some way privileged just because you made the Olympics. The other thing I was going to say with respect to the COVID and the vaccine, if every national Olympic committee in every country probably has some strong ties into government, federal government in every country. And I would say that they hopefully would exert some pressure on their national governments, as well as the IOC, to make these games happen, to deliver the Olympics for the athletes of all sports. And if a vaccine is seen to be your passport to the Olympics, then I think you have a choice. You have a choice to participate or not participate. You have a choice to vaccinate or, watch it on TV.
Yeah. Jimson, how has things been in the UK, relatively speaking, and compared to everybody else?
Yeah, I think my biggest pet peeve with all this is that it's about fairness, because who has access to facilities? And like in England, our weight rooms and tracks were closed from March until like July, and then they reopened, and then people got training. But then we had a second lockdown on November 4 until last Wednesday. So then all gyms were closed again for a month, tracks were closed, and now we're lifted from this lockdown, but we're in this weird 3-tier system, depending where you live. So how do you get any kind of training in when you can't use weights? And it's just not fair for those people who don't have access to, like, the National Center in Loughborough. You have access to a facility, and it's just really hard to balance the training. And I don't know how people are doing it. So any suggestions, let me know. But otherwise, it's just hard because the government is always changing the rules. We have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. I predict another lockdown or wave will happen in January, with Christmas happening and everyone getting together. I can expect probably January lockdown again. So if you're trying to make the Olympic team and your trials are in May, June, and you have no access to weights for say 4 weeks again in January, that's just going to mess up your training. So good luck to the athletes. My hat's off to them trying to stay fit and stay focused.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be handicapped, at least for the next 3 or 4 or 5, I don't know, 3 to 6 months, let's say. So it's just like, watching these NFL games week to week and seeing like, okay, well, they're missing their quarterback and they're missing, these key players. And well, that's the season. We're just going to keep pushing forward and there's going to be a winner. I assume that's what's going to happen with the Olympics. Is we're going to have it. Whoever shows up, and we'll be handing out medals either way. Is that what you guys think?
Yeah, I absolutely think the Olympics will happen. I'm willing to bet any money on anybody that they will have the Olympics, because there's just too much money at stake to not have them. Yeah, they will have them. There'll be mandatory testing. Look what happened in 2017, right? With Isaac McCullough, right? With the norovirus here in London. He didn't get to run the final, the 400, because he showed symptoms of the norovirus. So that was 2017, just recently here. So I think they'll happen, the Olympics. It might be empty stadiums. Probably won't be a opening ceremony. It might be a parade on a closed street, like they had the marathon here in London. It was behind closed streets. It was like 24 laps on a in a park. They will have the Olympics. Trust me, it will happen, but it'll be totally different and shambles, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we can expect at least another gong show for the next 4 to 6 months. So what are some positives that we can pull out of this? Like if we talk to Rob, I mean, are you taking anything from this last, 10 months of hell, and how are you changing what you're going to do? What's going to stay the same? Like, is there anything you're pulling from this for, like, okay, we got through this?
Yeah, listen, I know that I think relatively, and Ryan, you have my condolences by all means. I mean, one death is too much, but I think we know how to deal with this better with regards to deaths. They're still occurring. It's horrible, but I think it's a better scenario now in prevention, going through the experience of the spring, right? And I know that as you test more people, if you test, you're going to get more results, right? So the more people you test, the more positives you're going to get. And that's a good thing too, right? To do the testing, because you have to know who has it, who doesn't. So I think, medically, I think we know how to address better in certain situations, avoiding catastrophe. From a business perspective, you went through just like, I'll make an analogy to training. If you never trained anybody before and you start training people and you go to mentors and you learn and you do things, you become more proficient at running your business in this environment. And I think we're better now than we were before. Just like, as horrific as it may be, as Jimson just said, you try to find ways to train people into these environments. And I would think that, I could be wrong here, that if everybody's in the same situation, do they cancel out each other? Is everybody at the same level of fitness? And so the competition's even though it's not optimal. I don't know. Are people more apt to get injured because of lack of training? I don't know. I would bet they would, yes, just like the NFL this year. So I think as you go through, everybody's gone through what they've gone through in the spring and got a little bit of a reprieve in the summer, and now we're gonna have a tough time between Thanksgiving, the Christmas, Hanukkah, holidays, etc. And then you're gonna compound that with New Year's. I think it's gonna be a rough January and February, and I'm hoping that as the vaccines become available, I'm hoping that more companies become approved by the FDA in regards to their vaccine, so volume increases, right? So it's not just from Moderna, it's not just from Pfizer, it's not just from Johnson & Johnson eventually, it's from other companies as well, that by April, May, and June, we've gained some traction so that by September, and I'm not ignoring the Olympics by any means, but by September, we have some sense of traction and normalcy with schools reopening, interscholastic sports, college, sports, intercollegiate sports, professional sports, maybe participating in a normal environment, more normal environment versus bubbles of being shut down. So, I don't know if I answered your question, but that's how I'm looking at it. Listen, our board meetings are no longer in person. Our board meetings now are all virtual and have been since March. We have facilities in 5 states, so there are recommendations or requirements that are similar to each state and different to each state. So we got to look at that. And we've restricted our people from traveling interstate, right, based on these regulations, right? I'm not going to have somebody leave New York to go to Massachusetts and then come back, but have to be quarantined for 14 days. My people in Massachusetts are going to have to handle Massachusetts. The people in New York will handle New York, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, things evolve. That may change, that may not change. I don't know. Just going to have to see how things evolve.
So you're more technologically adept now, would you say, in the last year?
Not at all. I just I'm in more communication with. I'm a little bit more technically evolved, yes, but I'll give Mike a run for his money based on what he said before. But we do have IT. We have an IT division, et cetera, and you go to people that you depend on for their information, and you confident in their competency, or else why do you have them there? So,
Mike, what are you
Yes,
doing
sir.
different? What are you going to do different aside from figure out how to have a horizontal frame of your video?
Yes. I don't know, but I'll tell you one thing: we won't be using garbage bins for squat racks any longer. That was actually what Eleanor Patterson was doing. She's like she's our 1.99 high jump lady, and yeah. So again, swings and roundabouts situation. She got a little bit hurt because of that, because the facilities were shut down, couldn't access them, gyms were closed. But hopefully, she's so talented, she'll come back. My guys, we have not. My guys have not been that inconvenienced, apart from the gyms being closed periodically from time to time. We've been on the track every day on a grass track, even though the synthetic tracks have been locked down. Not all of them, some of them. The best one, the one that's closest to us, the old Olympic warm-up track for Sydney 2000. And you can get back on there now in the afternoon, but that's when we like to do our lifting. We do our track work in the morning. That track still isn't open most days of the week, except on the weekend. It's not open before 3 p.m. So Monday to Friday, not before 3 p.m. So we are obliged pretty much to do all of our quality work as well as our hack work on grass. And yeah, if you're hurdling on bumpy grass, you can end up with foot problems and whatnot. And we have got that problem. So yeah, I don't know. We're just muddling through it, I guess. We're trying to find the best results, and traveling's been difficult, but it's opened up a bit more now. So today, in another hour or two, we'll have Larry Spencer's group coming down from the Central Coast, which is about an hour's drive away, into the Big Smoke, Sydney. And so we'll be mixing the tribes together and working out a compromise session for all the guys and gals. So that'll be great, So again, I'm off track. I apologise.
Mike, can I ask you this?
Yeah, Rob. Yes, Rob. Have we frozen?
See, the technology battle has begun. Somehow Mike has found a way to freeze Rob.
Why are they selecting some could be open and some are closed?
If it's certain government, state government facilities, state government run facility, everything's been shut down. It's been kind of ridiculous, really. And it's still a problem. They won't let more than 600. They won't let more than 65 coaches in to the Olympic Park track meets. And I think it's a maximum of something like 600 people all up, 650, something like that. And but other venues, it's okay. And if you want to play football, well, you can have 30,000. So you just go figure. I don't understand it. Track and field, we're all isolated in our own lanes pretty much, and it's not hard to keep 1.5 meters distant if you're a field eventer. It's much easier again. The other tracks that are open are usually council run, local, regional, district councils, and they will do whatever suits them. So if you've got a connection, we have a connection through the Bankstown Sports Club, Athletics Club, and the groundsmen out there, they will let us on to do our synthetic track speed work, and that's incredibly generous of them. And we try not to avail ourselves of that more than once a week because we don't want to cause any issues. But usually when we go out there's only about 3 or 4 of us anyway, so it's not a big deal, and they don't charge us, which is really wonderful. And we do what we can to return the favor and support any meets that they put on. Yeah, so in terms of facilities, state government run Institute of Sport, New South Wales Institute of Sport gym was closed for many months, and it's now reopened on a very restricted schedule. I'm not sure of the details anymore because I've only got one athlete that's eligible to go in there. I mean, it still gets back to that issue of who gets the support, and unfortunately, in my country, the people who've got the support are the ones who don't need it anymore. They've already made it onto a national team, to a world championships. Oh, now we'll support you. What about the last 18 months? Don't you have any sense of talent ID? Can't you see that this athlete is the one that you really want to support and give a leg up to? No. Oh, okay, fine. That's where we're at. It's my bitch.
Eric, dare I ask you to answer a question here with your low voice? What are you doing different as we head into 2021? Anything that you've changed where you're like, hey, that works really well, I'm going to keep doing that?
Is this volume okay?
It's still loud, but whatever. Go ahead.
I'll push it way back. Is that better?
You're smaller now.
Yeah, much smaller now. You know, the thing that's worked really well is this mix of like virtual and in person. I think actually like people really like it, and we're keeping that going. This, like I may only see someone, for some people, for certain things, like one in 3, 1 in 4 in person. And I think I don't see that kind of thing going anywhere. Because it's afforded people like access to physio that they didn't think they would have, and in some ways from the business side it actually works well, because maybe then we're going to do weekly visits as opposed to something where they didn't want to come down to the clinic, you know, for another couple of weeks or something, especially in like BC where, you know, we've got obviously a big population in Vancouver, but then there's lots of people elsewhere in other parts of the province. So that kind of accessibility is really, really interesting. And there's no surprise that that's going to stick around, right? We've also done a lot more like continuing education inside our own team online through Zoom. And I see that continuing too, because we've actually spent more time together as a team over the last maybe 6 months than we did before, just not in person, because everyone feels like there's this accessibility in a, you know, we can do a team meeting at 8 p.m. on a Thursday, whereas there may have been resistance to that previously. And I don't see that going anywhere. So there's definitely lots of silver linings to how it's played out, and it'll be nice to move to some normalcy and see what really sticks around, but that's the plan.
Nice. Rob, did you find that too, that maybe you are communicating more, but just differently?
Yeah, we are. I mean, we're big on education as well. We have a residency program. We have a partnership and a fellowship program. We have our own educational curriculum. And we did educational venues every Tuesday night. So they probably have been more well attended because of, hey, what else I got going on in certain situations. But yeah, I mean, it's just, we've become more proficient with regards to, the effectiveness and the efficiency of treatment. I'll say that. What we did was, again, to be totally transparent, we had a furlough, probably 2/3 of our company, based on the decline in business. And then what we did with those furloughed individuals, we provided them with their health care. We paid for all their health care, so they would at least have their health care. And then we raised 1.2, $1.3 million, give or take. And so the people on furlough could, request, I need my mortgage paid this month. I need my food bill this month. I need this, I need childcare. And from that fund, we paid for expenses of people we furloughed. Until the point in time where it came to, you can only furlough people for 6 months, and then you have to make a decision, either they're hired or they're terminated. And through that 6-month process, as we became busier, those elective surgeries were occurring again, and doctors were seeing patients again, and et cetera. As we continued to hire people, then it came to the point where, you had to either, this is it, either you're hired or you're not hired. And the vast majority of people, probably about 80% of where we were pre-COVID. But the vast majority of that 20% we didn't rehire were physical therapy aides, right? The college kids or the high school kids that get you ice bags or clean the tables for you, things like that. So all clinicians were back, a lot of the administration, et cetera, finance, all the different departments are back. So now at that 80%, you've learned efficiencies, right? Because you're at 80%, you're trying to get to the business where you were before. So you check your quality and you become more efficient. So going through that process for the next 9 months, I'll say that we've been more efficient. To follow up what Eric said, yep. So what we did was with the virtual treatments, right? You telehealth, so to speak. We established our own telehealth certification. That probably doesn't mean anything to anybody on this Zoom call or the insurance companies or anything else, but as part of an educational venue, you had to go through the steps, pass this certification, and then you were able to give telehealth visits, which peaked probably in March, April, and May, and it's very low right now. But I assume that, I agree with Eric, it's not going to go away, but it will, as COVID increases, that will peak again, and we'll focus more on that as the need. That's what I'm saying. It's kind of like a moving target. As things change, we'll have to adapt to those changes based on what we learned in the past. So
yeah, Gibson, as far as the technology side goes, like, it seems like I listened to some interesting podcasts from a guy, an NYU prof, Scott Galloway. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he talks about how things have changed, and like Amazon was, really primed to be ready for a pandemic, and then other tech companies like Zoom, obviously, and what's happening in technology that's changed has been a game changer, and we should expect moving forward.
Well, I just came off our annual user conference for Salesforce, and I'll just say one line only from this conference. If you don't have a digital business, you don't have a business. Period. So whatever you do, guys, get digital. One-man shop, 10-man company, whatever it is, get digital. You got to get on the web. You got to get Zoom. You got to get all that digital stuff. SEO, get found, pay for ads, whatever you got to do. If you don't have a digital business as your backbone, you don't have anything, my friend. That's all we've been told.
How about TikTok? Do I need TikTok?
Yeah. I didn't even know what it was until like a month ago. I thought it was like a candy, like Tic Tacs. I had no idea. I'm a bit more technically inclined than Mike and Rob combined, but not
as much as we'd like you to be.
No, not that level.
Ryan, education. How is education going to change moving forward?
Well, I think that we're permanently going to have a virtual learning environment for kids. I mean, that's guaranteed going to happen. When we talk about, Rob asked a question about summer stuff, and I didn't actually get to one of the things I wanted to say, which was there's probably going to be more competition for summer education. Right before the pandemic went off, there's a school district that centers in Springfield, Missouri, and they had a virtual campus for summer school. And when they opened it up to the state of Missouri, they had like some extreme number, like 10,000 participants in their virtual learning program. So all of that money they were able to accumulate from outside the school district. So these schools, if they are savvy and are some of the better schools with some of the better teachers, which I would argue the best school districts have a lot of times doesn't have a lot to do with the teachers. It has to do with the parents. You know, the parents really make the difference in establishing culture at home that leads to good behavior at school, which leads to studious students. But I think that's what's going to go for sure. And speaking of education, I think one of the best things for me as an individual and a person who wants to scale up some of the things that I'm trying to do, a virtual setting now has allowed me to make money off of webinars. Like that's a financial avenue. Like Jimson said, if you don't have a digital business, you don't have one. And now I have the opportunity where people will legitimately pay to listen to me wax philosophically and make bad jokes about Jimson's beautiful hair that he's grown out since the pandemic, or, you know, Eric's magnificent mustache, you know. And so it's kind of forced us to do that, you know, and I know everybody's got a podcast, and this is kind of a podcast in a way, what we do here, but, you know, I've been pushed by a lot of people to do that. And I think other people are going to do that too. And the ones who are better at that are going to figure out a way to not only get their message out, but to make money. And again, it's also forced us to collaborate with a lot of people over a great distance, because we are pro-human. We do want that connection. So like us doing these talks, like you've always said, Derek, is kind of like therapy amongst our circle, but like we're all better friends now. Like I have friends in multiple parts of the United States and multiple parts of the world that I'm sure like you'd let me sleep on your couch for a night if I was in the Vancouver area, you know, or whatever. Yeah, you would. We'd have a few
No, I
brews.
wouldn't.
We'd have a few brews and be all right. But you know, that's amazing, you know, and
You could
that's
come to New York, Ryan. It's okay.
What's that, Rob?
You could come to New York. Don't worry.
All right, thanks, man.
Go to the come to the right coast.
Yes.
Rob has a nice shed you could put you in.
Yeah, there you go. Well, as long as I got a little bit of warmth and a pillow, I'm usually okay to sleep wherever I need to sleep. But truly, like that friendship and connection has been really important to me, but it's been so cool to be able to really solidify relationships. Like there's another group called the Coaches Collab, and it's like thousands of coaches that were getting together all summer long, hundreds of people on these calls that like I consider friends now that I would have never even known they existed beforehand. You know, that stuff's beautiful. And I think the focus on health, you know, where everybody's like body positive, you know, even if you're 350 pounds and you're diabetic and obese, like I think that's kind of destroyed that a little bit, where it's like, hey, like you're going to be in serious health complications if you don't get this squared away. We want you to be confident, but we also want you to be healthy. You know, this focus on like getting sunlight, being outside, vitamin D, getting your diet in check. I go walking now once a day with my daughter, and we walk for a mile or two every day, and it's the best part of my day. Those things that have forced us to do these things have made it really, really, really help you drill down what truly is important and how to adapt. And I think that those things are good. And there is a lot of silver lining in those things, in the death and destruction that this thing has reaped. You know, and I think it's made us appreciate like the NFL, right? The NFL, you know, there's been people who are like, I'm never watching the NFL again. I look forward to NFL Sunday more than ever. And I happen to be winning my fantasy football league because I actually have time to pay attention to it, you know, and it's like, wow, I didn't realize how much professional sports mattered to my happiness, that level of entertainment that those men who put their livelihood on the line every Sunday and risk their health for me to be entertained, it was so important, you know, and I think that shows to a lot of regular people as well, like, hey, professional sports is actually really important. Like it really is a part of our happiness. And the respect that I think people now have for that has been raised, which makes our jobs in the eye of the public maybe a little bit more important than it used to be, which I think all of those things are good.
Yeah, well, it always pays to have Tyreek Hill on your fantasy team. Adrian, what are you going to do different? What has changed for you? And then I'm going to get Tyrone Edge on there and ask, where the heck is the Speed Summit? So
Well, first off, you guys got to forgive me. I'm on the left coast, as they call it. I'm out here in Seattle visiting my brother.
Oh, you're in
And
Seattle. You're in
yeah,
spitting distance.
yeah, exactly. And so, but the
Nice.
problem is that, well, going from Michigan to Seattle, East Coast to West Coast, you guys already know the time changes got me all jacked up. No,
It's the Starbucks. It's the Starbucks IV you have.
well, it's funny because he took me down to the pier, and Derek, I'm sure you left coast guys, I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. We were at the pier where I'm sure you've seen the Seahawks where they're throwing the fish and everything. We were down there.
No, we just protest at the fish market. That's what the left coast does.
Funny you mentioned, my brother's laughing in the background. Funny you mentioned that, because we went downtown, and normally stores have like one security guard. There was people ready to board up everything because we got word that they were about to protest again. And I'm like, what? Yeah, I'm dead serious. They're about to protest again. I'm like, okay. So we went down to fish market, and one of the other things, I didn't realize that homelessness here in Seattle is huge.
It's a growth industry.
Oh, well, that's part of that too. I know I'm off subject, but I don't care. It's I'm telling you, well, because I went to wash my hands, and I swear to God, this guy was washing his hands this slow. And I'm like, what is he doing? Like, literally, he's moving this slow. And I looked in his eyes. I'm like, I'm not going to ask him how he's doing. I'm just going to keep it moving. So, my brother reminded me that, remember, this is the first state that legalized weed and everything else. So everybody's they don't care. I'm dead serious. But anyway, so that's why I'm all jacked up. So, but
it's not the grunge music thing.
Exactly, man. But
Adrian, I just canceled my trip to Seattle.
Coach,
I was going to say, if there's ever been an anti-promotion for Seattle, you got it right there.
Where else could Pete Carroll coach? Honestly.
What's funny is, it's funny you mentioned that. I met a guy that just got signed, Brad something. He's an offensive lineman. Only reason I knew who he was because he had the sports academy. I'm sure you guys remember Mama Sports Academy, Kobe's academy before he passed away. Well, anyway, he had that hoodie on. And so my buddy Jay, I know I kill his name all the time, but my buddy Jay, remember Jay runs that. And so we got to talking. He said he literally just got picked up weeks ago because of all the injuries on the offensive line. So I'm like, okay. But
so you're not going to change anything. You're just going to move to the left coast and just start your life there.
No, I can't do the left coast. I cannot do it. No. But I'll admit it's nice out here. It's cool out here, but the place to visit, but no. But I'm sure you saw in the chat, I was asking, I'm glad the guys brought up USA indoors and outdoors, because a couple of my guys I was supposed to take to USA's, they're asking me. I'm like, bro, I don't know. A lot of the high school coaches and trainers in the area, they're asking me the same thing. Are we going to have indoor track? And my guess is good as yours, because I'm sure you guys know this, like every now and then when we get that 50-degree weather, we're outside, period. But then I got kicked out of University of Michigan, Flint, Ann Arbor. I got kicked out of Saginaw Valley. I was supposed to go to University of Washington today, meet up with Joshua Anderson. I'm sure that name rings a bell. I can't go there either. I'm like, Jesus Christ, but so it's just honestly just trying to find a place, like you guys discussed.
Well, I'm planning a protest for the weather and the rain out here in the left coast, so Pacific Northwest. But we'll talk. Tyrone, haven't talked to you for a while. What's going on in your world, and when are we going to see you launch another online event?
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt and take it off topic or anything, but yeah, we'll probably have something in January. So working on it right now. It's been a little delayed, but we just moved to Montreal and stuff a little while ago, so just adjusting. It's not really a good excuse, but what I was going to mention, just if our last speaker, I didn't catch his name. Was that? Geez, who was it? The last person speaking. Was it Adrian? Okay, Adrian. Is he based? He's obviously based in Michigan right now.
He's just.
Okay. Just a thought for Adrian in terms of facilities. I don't know if it's available or not, but east of Cleveland, I know it's a bit of a drive for you, but there's a facility that was built there by Ron Clutter, I think it was called. His name was. The word is that he made a ton of money selling portable air conditioners during the Hurricane Katrina crisis and built this ridiculous indoor facility with a nice 10-lane, 100-meter strip indoors, a 300-meter track that's pretty nice. And it's basically in the middle of nowhere. So if it's a place you can get to, and if you wanted to do, let's say, a 4 to 6 day camp, and that they're accepting people and you can meet the requirements, it's a phenomenal facility, and it's not overpopulated. Again, that's entirely, it entirely depends on the situation in that particular area, but that's a facility that I like. It used to be called Spire Center. I'm not sure what it's called now.
It's actually, sorry, it's actually still Spire, because matter of fact, Spire, they were supposed to hold, I know last year they held the Big Ten indoors.
Yes.
Yes, Spire, they're still doing it. And as far as, because I see Tiana Bartoletta, I know she's encouraging it. There's a couple of other guys, the folks that are endorsing it too, because they're reaching out for something.
It's a great
White
place.
Phillips is endorsing it too. So, but
it's not very busy. It's never been very busy. It's kind of rural. Good spot though for if you want to do a short like mini camp. I've always liked that place.
Anything else going on, Tyrone, that we should know about?
Nothing. I can't really say I have anything exciting to report. I just hear what, like, what Ryan was saying and some other people, but I guess it's been a very interesting year for a lot of people. But one of the things I would say is that it's a real test of people's mental endurance more than anything else. And I think that there's a real, and I apologize if I'm stepping on what anyone else has already said. I think there's a real opportunity for those kind of, how you would put it, like non-main eventers, in terms of like people you'd expect to be running fast and performing well this year. I think it's anybody's game who's going to go out and put in good performances because of the like just the amount of disruption. Those who are able to be creative and who are able to like kind of just pivot quickly and think on their feet, those are the coaches and those are the athletes who are going to benefit the most. If anything, this has disrupted, maybe not the very, very, very top tier players, because they're always going to find a way to get things done. But those other people who are the second tier people who are just trying to get established, I think there's a lot more opportunity in that space, like for your like potential finalist who's trying to break through, or somebody in a lower medal position. I think we'll see some surprises this year. If there is an Olympics, if there is when there are quality meets, I think there will be people who are surprising based on their ability to like deal with adversity and deal with, these unusual circumstances. One of the things I suspect is that you'll see, I wouldn't be surprised if Caribbean countries did very strongly, and I wouldn't be surprised to see people in maybe countries that lack some of the more advanced resources. This has been a bit of a playing field leveler, and I'm really interested to see if that theory holds. And I think it's a great opportunity that kind of like has, maybe taken away some of the advantages of the more traditional powerhouse countries in the world of speed.
How about even colder climates? Like if you don't have access to an indoor facility, like Mike was saying, a lot of things like that could be closed, like training centers. So if you are in Jamaica or somewhere in the Bahamas or wherever, and you're training, you're outdoors, it hasn't really changed. Is that a factor?
Oh, I think that's a huge issue. The other thing is, I think that people, just from having done camps in the Caribbean and knowing athletes who've come from there, I think we underestimate the ability. Like, for example, if you train in the Bahamas, you can go to Thomas Robinson Stadium 7 days a week. The lights are on. Nobody says, hey, do you have a credential? You can just train anytime you want, as long as you're not bothering anybody. They treat you really nicely there. Phenomenal place to train. And literally the only time you can't train is like Sunday at 10 p.m. because I think they turn the lights off on Sunday. But other than that, like, you can literally do what you want when you need to. And it's just the ability to do that, like for low or no cost. The fact that you have great weather most of the year, those are huge advantages, not to mention the fact that there's a great community and great culture for speed there that routinely gets underestimated. The population levels that you have in, like, for example, Bahamas, in order to get any medalists, it's actually, if you look at the population statistics, it's just outrageous that they've been as successful as they have been. And that's not even mentioning countries like Jamaica. So yeah, I think that they're very resilient, very creative, and like the fact that you have good weather, throws a lot less problems into your plans. So I think you're absolutely right about that. I think it's a big plus.
Yeah. Dash, I want to ask you how things are going now that you're in the witness protection program based on your video there. What have you been doing different, Dash? You've been doing more outdoor training camps and stuff with kids?
Yeah, we're at least in Northern California, we're about to go back into lockdown, my area specifically, but our local area, we're allowed to have 12 people socially distant training at local parks or like groups, but you can't be affiliated with any school or team. So I've been doing just some youth speed camps twice a week, 6 sessions, mostly 12, 13-year-olds, just because they have no sports and nothing to do. And so there's a big market and a lot of parents want to get their kids out, and I have everything to keep the distance. Like part of the thing, I give them masks when they show up just because some kids aren't even bringing them. And I think that's crazy for me. Like I live with someone who hits a trifecta. He's got a pacemaker, he's got diabetes, and he's 68. So I have to be super careful. I just found out my niece tested positive yesterday for COVID. So and she's 11.
Jeez.
Yeah, so I'm just keeping my distance and really, as you said, witness protecting. Yeah, staying home, and I'm doing the camps, but I'm keeping it pretty safe and keeping the distance with the kids, just because I have to for if I'm near my father. So
Good. Good. Keep that up. I know you're an Arizona 49ers fan too, so
yeah, they're doing good.
Sam Feldman, what's going on with baseball?
I heard from a guy who I follow. It looks like big league spring training is set for February 16th or 17th. I think that's somewhere in the week to 10 days after it typically starts. Minor league hasn't been announced. I know there are plenty of rumors I've heard of that says minor league may be delayed until even that camp breaks. So we could be starting our season off in April for all I know at this point. But I don't know. I do know when it comes to training rooms and weight rooms, I think we've had limitations on players and total staff in there at a time. I guess fortunately on like football, overall staff and so it's easier to manage it into groups. But when it comes to that, I think we're all in a little bit of a wait and see. I know free agency has been slower than it typically would be too, and so I know Jason was on here a second ago. I know he spoke on the strength coaches winter meeting portion, but for winter meetings as a whole, there's not anything in person as well there. So I don't fully know if they're doing that via Zoom or whatnot. I know our part did, but overall, it's for a lot of us wait and see at this point and just kind of taking it still day by day, week by week type thing as we go. I know we're trying to plan as best we can for whenever we go. In terms of our staff and being ready and being as prepared as we can, but information comes as it is, and we prepare as best we can for that.
Yeah, that seems to be the theme moving forward is like, well, wait and see. Let's keep doing what we're doing. And I'll definitely want to meet up with all you guys, let's say last week of December, so we can kick 2020 out the door together and, kind of sum things up. But certainly thanks for jumping on. Ryan Banta, you got any final thoughts as we move into 2021?
Well, obviously, I want to echo what Tyrone said. I think the biggest thing that we all have to recognize is that this isn't a mental endurance test, and we're almost on the other side of it. And that, if 2020's taught us anything, is just how important the human relationship is that we have with the people who we love and care about. And that there's a lot of things we used to worry about that we don't need to worry about, that they are not important. So refine what really matters to you. The 5 things that matter to me is obviously my family's health, the sustainability of my nest egg, the, realization of how important it is to be a teacher and to not, ignore the small things that my students need from me, that I need to dive in even more because of that lack of connection. The fact that what we do as coaches really matters. Like we reach and teach the people we work with and that we change their lives. And then most importantly, whoever's in the White House, who's ever in Congress or whatever governmental entity that you have, they're just as clueless about what to do and how to react as everybody else. So it's more important than ever to figure out what you really need and protect the things that are most important to you.
Yeah, that's a good message. Take care of yourself before taking care of others, because then you can't take care of others. So thanks again, guys, for jumping on, and wish you guys luck for the next little while here, but we'll jump on at the end of December and just do a bit of a year-end debrief and see where
Always
everybody's at.
always put on your face mask or your oxygen mask before you put on your child mask. So
Yeah.
on an airplane, same thing.
I won't be flying anytime soon. So
Yeah, same here.
all right, guys. Great to
Guys.
see you again. Be safe.
Yeah.
Don't go out and protest, Adrian. Just stay there and get your coffee IV set up, okay? All right.
Thanks, Jeff.
Take care, everyone.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
holiday, everybody.
Rob, nice to see you.
Take
See you
care.
later.
You guys, bye.